There's a good documentary. It's posted on YouTube. I think it was originally called The Winter Soldier. And it was done in, or maybe just Winter Soldier, it was done in the early 70s. I think it actually shows John Kerry in there when he was in his 20s, but it's a good documentary, and it's these kids, basically. I mean, guys in their 20s who had just gotten out of Vietnam, who just come back after tours of duty, and talking about the basically the torture of prisoners, the massacring of civilians. And this is, I don't mean to say that the United States still does this today. The United States military still does this today. In reference to civilians, or so brazenly. And I also don't mean to say that it can't happen today, or it never has happened. Any occupying army is usually extremely brutal on the populace, even when it doesn't mean to be. Not to say that the United States means to be or doesn't mean to be. I think it's learned its lesson from Vietnam in building hearts and minds. But WINSEC, which is School of the Americas, is still around. It just changed their name to WINSEC in 2001, 2002. But the tactic of draining the ocean, or drying of the sea, is what this is called, where you go in and you massacre the entire population. This happened in El Salvador in the 1980s. That's why Archbishop Oscar Romero was assassinated for just mentioning the poor and saying that the military should not be so harsh on the people who have the 9 priests, as they slept, were massacred for being Catholic and for being priests. Doors of churches were kicked in. Foreign aid workers that had nothing to do with the war. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Foreign aid workers. 4 elderly nuns and 1 Catholic laywoman who were, I believe, missionaries for charity, or what. They were basically helping with medical stuff and trying to feed the poor. They were pulled over by men who were trained at the School of the Americas in Georgia, raped, tortured, and murdered, and buried in a shallow grave. 5 out of the 6 were trained in the School of the Americas. And the guerrillas actually were winning in El Salvador before America stepped in. The United States of America stepped in. But these atrocities were going on before, because of the United States was training training the Latin Americans with these tactics since the beginning of the Cold War. That's why you see communism kind of change, because it was the whole 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. People may not understand this who live right now, but it was between the communists and the United States, or the communists and the free world, not just the United States, the entire free world. That's how it was seen. So if you were fighting against one person, you just went to the other one. That's why you could see things like Catholic communists, which nobody would have suspected that beforehand. And even at the time, nobody knew. It wasn't even imaginable in the 90s, right? The view was, when the communists got in power, they massacred everybody, like they had been doing in every other situation. Ukraine, Soviet Union, Cuba, Albania, all these places. China, just mass murder in the tens of millions and sometimes hundreds of millions. But the tactics to fight this were extremely brutal. I don't blame the individual soldiers, although responsibility has to lie with them as well. But of the top people and the CIA. And these people were extremely nihilistic. There's not really a possibility that you can believe, you can call yourself a Christian, and then partake in systematic extermination of peoples, men, women, and children, and especially target women and children. It's not possible, and a Christian can't say, I was following orders. We have St. Moritz, St. George, all these guys. There's no way we can say this. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at. I don't mean to tell people to watch it.